Well, this is one of the times I'm actually bummed I was right. We have unemployment numbers. China, what did they do and what should we do about it? And finally, not all the grandmas and grandpas are hating this quarantine. All that's coming up right now on I'm Right. Well, there's no way I can sugarcoat this. There's no way I can put this nicely. We have 6.6 million unemployment claims. 6.6 million. We had 3.2 million last week. I have been scolded throughout this process for talking about the economy, for warning about the damage that was coming, for telling people that I'm not using fancy models from experts. I'm telling you the actual numbers I'm seeing. I have been yelled at and yelled at and yelled at, and the word they love to use to me, to this day, I get, Jesse, haven't you looked at the virus numbers? I guess you don't understand exponential growth. Well, I do understand exponential growth. Exponential growth just took us from 3.2 million unemployed people to 6.6. Oh, and that number's way light. And I mean way light. Why? Well, for one, we have the self-employed people who can't report. Two, we already know, and we have heard back from several states officially that this is the case. Their unemployment lines are so full, they're collapsing. I believe it's Florida has flat out told people, look, just do it manually. Let's do it by paper because our system cannot handle the overload. It's that bad. It's that bad. And again, I don't like to do this kind of show. We like to laugh and have fun and mock Nancy Pelosi. That's a better time, but I don't have another way to put this to you. It's going to get worse. 6.6 million does not turn into 1 million next week. It doesn't turn into 2 million. It doesn't turn into 3, 4, or 5. 6.6 million goes up. And that's not a model. Look, I went to Brown University for 14 years and I chose to use this computer model and I put it right alongside this model. That's just a fact. The truth of the matter is that small businesses make up for half of the GDP in this country. Half. They're dying. Not next week, not by the end of April. They're dying right now. And more die as they run out of capital. You see what they've all had to do is they've taken all their monthly expenses and they're figuring out if they have enough cash reserves to get by. Now, already we're at the point where many have not. Many are already gone, period. Sorry. It's just a fact. Well, even the more financially solid ones now are going to start going. On top of that, had a lawyer buddy I talked to yesterday. Yes, I associate with lawyers on occasion. It's hitting law firms. Now, I don't expect anybody out there to shed any tears for lawyers. They've kind of deserved their reputation, let's just be honest. But that tells you this is going white collar. I personally know 2 VPs of a company I'm not going to name, $300,000 a year plus jobs, gone, fired. When you have this kind of economic devastation, it does not just hit the working people who I've been fighting for this whole time. This goes all the way to the top. This will reverberate in ways you cannot possibly imagine, and it will hurt way worse than coronavirus would ever hurt. This is going to be painful. It is going to be painful. And I don't mean pain that's coming way down the line. Take a look at this video. Look at this video of cars. Do you know what this is? You know what that is? That is not a line to get into a Pittsburgh Steelers game. That's not a line heading to church on Sunday. That is a line in Pennsylvania, not Molly, Pennsylvania, to get into the emergency food bank so people can eat. That is happening right now in the United States of America. What does that look like by April 30th when we've been told they're going to reassess? And I have to be honest about this next thing I'm going to tell you. I considered not telling you. I did, because I feel like the show gets too dark sometimes now, because everything's dark out there and everything's coronavirus and people are dying and people are losing their jobs. And I'm not trying to bring anybody down. And we just love to laugh. We love to laugh and love to keep it light. So I debated not telling you. And then I decided, as horrible as I am as a human being, and I am a terrible person, I admit that, I do owe you honesty. I talked to somebody. I did not hear this firsthand. It certainly could be wrong. I talked to somebody who knows one of America's governors. Now, I know this somebody knows this governor. They listened in on a call. Know what they said on that call? It ain't going to be April 30th either. Now, I will say, and we're going to go into this a little bit later on the show, that would be a very, very, very bad mistake. And for more than just economic reasons, that would be a bad mistake. We do not need to do that. I need the elected officials in this country to hear me now. Stop doing that. I understand everybody's scared. I understand nobody wants to die from this horrible disease. Nobody wants one of their loved ones to die from this horrible disease. It is awful. I know this. It is awful. It is not as bad as a Great Depression will be. It just isn't. And again, not to give you too many models, do you know it took 2 years into the Great Depression to get to 9% unemployment? We were in the second year of the Great Depression before we got to 9% unemployment. We just got there in 3 weeks. You cannot shut your economy down for any reason. You never, under any circumstances, look at a 350 million person country and say, everybody just go home, lock yourselves up, be fine. It's just a pause. We're just pausing it, right? Doesn't this work like a remote? We'll just, hold on. All right, we're going to end it in a couple of days. We'll just press start, and it'll all just start going again. That's not how it works at all. And whoever said that's how it works is an idiot. It doesn't work that way. We are now in the lasting damage portion. Stop this madness. No, I don't want a single person to die from this disease. But no, we cannot sacrifice generations of wealth to fight a pandemic. You can't do it. That is immoral. Wake up, America. And wake up real soon. All right. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I'm right. Now, MYBOOKIE.AG. I have finally found something to help pass the time during this quarantine. We're all going through the same thing. You're sitting around the house, you're nervous, you're bored, you're desperate, the walls are closing in. You can only watch so much Netflix and crank out so many push-ups, and sooner or later, you need something else. What about MYBOOKIE.AG? Maybe give yourself a little bit of a sports fix without the sports. Yes, whenever we get sports back, you can bet there. There's no problem. But MYBOOKIE.AG lets you bet on politics. And not just things like next president. You can vote on that too. You can vote on the next terrorist to be captured. You can vote on the next Supreme Court justice to retire. You can vote on the Electoral College results. MYBOOKIE.AG is there to help you pass the time, and they got free money. By that, I mean they're going to match you. If you go to MYBOOKIE.AG and you use the promo code Jesse, do not forget that. Use promo code Jesse, they'll match your $250. You put your $250 in, they match it. You put your $1,000 in, they match it. Couldn't we all use a little free money right now? MYBOOKIE.AG, promo code Jesse. There's something we haven't talked about too much on the show since the beginning of all this madness, and it's really something we need to give some serious thought to. What about China? What happened in China? What exactly happened in China? Not what they say happened. What happened there? What are they doing now? What are we doing now to them? What should we and the world do to them? How much responsibility do they take? How much responsibility should they take? What does this world look like if we, the United States, if our economy does crash? And, we're not hesitant to have uncomfortable conversations on this show. Maybe we need to talk about it. maybe it's time to address this because this is something we need to keep our eyes on. Trump here is talking about, their numbers may have been a little off.
Their numbers seem to be a little bit on the light side, and I'm being nice when I say that, relative to what we witnessed and what was reported.
A little bit. Like we talked about last night on the show, you remember, we have word that the incinerators in Wuhan are still going. Also, the live, animal markets are still going. One would think you'd learn your lesson from that. But a little light, they're saying China has fewer cases of coronavirus than we do. Come on. A little light is being real nice. And that's what's so funny. Even the president of the United States, who's very, hard on China, he's been harder on China and better on China than any president of my lifetime. Even he is being kind of diplomatic. I realize he's president, he has to. At one point in time, do we stop being diplomatic? Tell me. At some point, someone's going to have to look around and be like, China's lying. They're lying liars who lie. And they lied here too. Liar. Right? Here's the VP.
Didn't the United States as a whole get off to a late start?
Well, the reality is that we could have been better off if China had been more forthcoming. I mean, the reality is that China's been more transparent with regard to the coronavirus than certainly they were for other infectious diseases over the last 15 years. But what appears evident now is that long before the world learned in December that China was dealing with this, and maybe as much as a month earlier than that the outbreak was real in China.
Right? And as critical as I've been on the president and so much of the response to this whole thing, this line I don't understand, and this will be the line the media has already decided on. They've clearly decided on it. You're hearing the questions they asked in the briefing are along these lines. Every time they get someone like Vice Pence on the like Mike Pence on the TV, it's along those lines. Well, did you do enough? Should you have done more? Should we have been better prepared? Couple things on that. One, no nation, no matter how big, powerful, and wealthy, is better prepared for a global pandemic of a disease you've never seen before. That's not how it works. You can't, as a nation, be massively prepared for any global pandemic that may pop up. One, that's just absolutely not how it works. Two, it's kind of gross the media is already doing that as a setup for November. You know that's what they're doing, right? These people are not bored. There's plenty of stuff to report on. That's what they're doing. They are laying the groundwork. So when the presidential election's about to happen, they'll be like, well, Trump should have did more. Don't you remember? Everyone was saying that back in the day. They love to do that. Like they are the only ones who say something. Then a few months later, they're like, hey, everyone agreed. But wait. But three, China is really, really responsible. That's amazing to think about. We started to get word a month or two after they've been fighting it. That can't be on us. That can't be on us. If I go home tonight and my son has the middle of his room on fire and comes out and doesn't tell me for an hour and then the house burns down, that's not my fault. That's certainly not my fault. They knew. China knew. And all indications are right now that China knew and China covered it up. The question is, and this is the big uncomfortable one, and I'm looking forward to talking to Gordon Chang about this in a few, what do we do about it? And why didn't they tell us? And I don't know the answer to that. I genuinely do not know the answer to that question. You can say it's pride. They were prideful people. They didn't want to act like, there was something deadly on their soil. They just wanted to handle it, try to contain it themselves. And then, just like the fire in my son's room, oops, it got out. We better tell everyone, hey, we got a problem here. Could be. Could it be they're happy we got it? I'm sorry. I hate to throw out questions like that. Could China be happy we got it? Do you think what our response to it right now is making China happy or sad? You tell me. We have American pastors being arrested for having a church service. We have politicians, elected officials, assuming the authority, I don't know where they got this, to ensure Americans will stay locked in their homes or be arrested. It's real. We have the government telling businesses, you're allowed to open, you must close, you must close, you must close, you must close, you're allowed to open. Okay? We have an economic system in free fall, 6.6 million unemployed. If you're China and you look at our response to this, how upset are you about the virus? Especially when you consider they're a tyrannical communist regime with a horrible human rights record that says, you know, they don't necessarily care if some of their people die. Oh, we got some dead people in Wuhan. Fire up the incinerators. No biggie. It's the reality. So I don't know. Is this a total accident? Is it an accident that turned into something good and now they're enjoying it? Is it not an accident at all? I understand some cable news people are starting to talk about this. There's a bioweapons lab in Wuhan. That is a bit coincidental for some people. But I don't know. I don't know what the answers to these questions are. I look very, very forward to hearing Gordon Chang's answers to these questions, because you want to talk about a man who is all over this China stuff. I want to know just how bad it is. I want to know what he thinks they did, what he knows they did. He's a better resource than anyone I've ever known. All right, we're going to talk to him. Hang on. Before we get to the man who knows more about China than, frankly, anybody else, let us go to this little soundbite from Senator Marsha Blackburn, because I want Gordon's opinion on this.
Is there a way to hold mainland China accountable?
Oh, indeed there is. One of the things is my Senate Resolution 553, which expresses the sense of the Senate that we know this came from Wuhan, China, and that they hid the information and were not transparent, that they blocked the World Health Organization and the CDC from coming in to help. They tried to blame it on the U.S. military, and we hold them accountable. And I will tell you, I think that we need to look at the fact that China owns over $1 trillion of our debt. They like investing in us. Why do they like that? Because we are a safe bet for them, a safe place to put their money. And knowing that they have made a global pandemic worse than it ever would have been because of their actions, they should waive some of our debt. And they've caused us a tremendous amount of loss of life, loss of businesses, suffering, inconvenience, shutting down our economy.
Well, I actually don't have any problem with that. I want to hear from this man about more than just that. His name is Gordon Chang. You can find him on Twitter at Gordon G. Chang. He's the author of The Coming Collapse of China. First of all, Gordon, before we get into what we should do to China, what do you think they did here? Obviously, rumors are swirling everywhere. They knew about this a long time before. They purposely covered it up. It was all an accident. It's a bioweapon. What do you make of what China actually did?
Well, on the initial question of where it came from, we really don't know, Jesse. And the reason is that there are two theories, and there's science that supports both theories. And one of the theories is it came from a wet market in Wuhan, from a bat. The other is that it was a release, probably an accidental one, from a P4 biosafety lab. That's the highest level of biosecurity. The question is whether this was engineered or not. There's a lot that we don't know. And the thing that's got to be most of concern is that Beijing has prevented the international community from studying the origins of this outbreak. There was a World Health Organization team in Wuhan for part of a day, and it was only part of the team that was allowed into the city. That obviously was not enough. So we got to ask the question, what is China hiding? The second part of your question, though, is that China took actions that, deliberate actions, which permitted this to become a pandemic instead of just a local epidemic in Wuhan in central China. They hid the human-to-human transmissions. And because of that, countries around the world, including the U.S., did not take precautions that they otherwise would have adopted.
I am as anti-China as any person walking the planet, but allow me to play devil's advocate and just tell me if this is even possible. What if it was from a bat or something, and they were just too embarrassed to tell everybody? Is that even humanly possible? If they won't let people in because it's kind of embarrassing, we have a gross disease that started here.
Well, I suppose that's possible, but we got to remember whether they were embarrassed or not, the consequences of their actions and what they did.
Yeah.
Doctors in Wuhan knew from about the second week in December that this was a human-to-human transmission type of bug, because they had the spread of disease that could only be explained in that way. But China did not officially acknowledge that until January 21st. And what's critical here is that the World Health Organization on January 14th issued that infamous tweet that said, look, based on what the Chinese have told us, there's no human-to-human transmission. And that actually, I think, ended up letting this bug spread around the world a lot faster than it would have, largely because countries said, oh, no human-to-human transmission, we don't have to worry about it. And also because they were undercounting the number of infections and deaths. It made this look, as Dr. Bricks said on Tuesday, it made it look like SARS, not something much more serious, which it actually turned out to be.
I've heard several complaints from people saying the World Health Organization severely dropped the ball in this. They're running cover for China. They've been running cover for China. Are they running cover for China? And if so, why? What do they get out of that?
Well, unfortunately, they have, because they adopted China's position on human-to-human transmissions, which was absolutely critical. And they adopted China's lines about there shouldn't be any restrictions imposed on travelers from China. And travelers from China are obviously the ones who spread this disease. The WHO delayed for about a week or so the declaration of a public emergency of international concern. That happened in January. They delayed the declaration of a pandemic. That was last month. And Dr. Tedros, who is the Director General of the WHO, its chief, actually talked about the superiority of China's socialist system in dealing with the epidemic. That was an attack on democracy and on our democracies. The WHO participated in that. So yeah, they're carrying China's water. They're acting like an arm of the Chinese Communist Party.
Why? Are these a bunch of commie college professors? Are they actual people from China? Why would they carry China's water?
I don't know the answer to that question. Dr. Tedros is a socialist, but China doesn't supply that much in the way of contributions to the WHO. We're the biggest funder of it. But China has devoted a lot of effort to controlling multilateral organizations like the WHO. And Tedros's predecessor is Margaret Chan, who's the Chinese national. So they have actually focused on the WHO. But it really is a mystery why other officials in the WHO, including the number 2, Bruce Aylward, why they actually go along with this. I just don't know.
Gordon, I am extremely worried, and I'm hoping you can calm these fears, that we are destroying our own economy. Look, I'm not worried about that. I know we are. That's just a fact. Whether it's right or wrong, we can debate. We are destroying our own economy. We do have a pandemic. I believe we'll get our arms around it. I'm worried that a month, 2 months, 3 months from now, we try to get back to business and we have destroyed our economy so much that the rest of the world is going to start looking for a new superpower to shop from. And I'm worried that's going to be China. Should I have that worry?
Well, yeah, we should be concerned because Beijing is trying to use the pandemic to push the U.S. Off to the side and to promote totalitarianism. But to a certain extent, China can't do what it wants to do. And the reason is they are trying to get prematurely back to work. Xi Jinping, the Chinese ruler, has been trying to do this since the first week of February. We are seeing evidence of a second wave of infections that will further cripple China's economy. And I think that that probably will tar China's image to such extent that Xi Jinping will not be able to accomplish his aims. I might be optimistic on that, but the thing about this bug is that it's highly transmissible, and if you don't kill it off, it will come back, and it'll come back in a way that will further hobble the United States. So while I understand your concerns, I do think President Trump is doing the right thing in terms of trying to combat this.
What do we do about it? Fast forward to whenever that time frame is. We're past it. We've got it done. We're back to working again. What do we actually do about China? Do we do what the senator said at the beginning of this? Do we do more? Do we do nothing? There has to be something done, surely. What do we do? What can we do?
Well, there's a number of things. First of all, we need to reduce our dependence on China for the production of pharmaceuticals and medical protective gear. If we're going to seek reparations, which is what Senator Blackburn was talking about, we can't do this alone, because if we do this alone, Beijing and Russia and Iran and all of China's allies are going to say that they're going to tar us for our stewardship of the global financial system. So we need to do this in connection with the issuers of other major currencies. In other words, with the pound, the euro, Swiss franc, and the yen. We do that, and we can get some compensation for this. But that compensation won't nearly be enough. The one thing that we have to do, Jesse, is to drastically reduce our relations with China. Because China's regime is unreformable. We have seen it take actions in connection with the coronavirus that are malicious, that Chinese leaders knew would inevitably lead to the spread of this disease. This is actually worse than China's reaction to the SARS epidemic of 2002, 2003. So if we're going to protect ourselves, we've got to understand that we're in an existential struggle. As China said, it's in a people's war with us, quote unquote. That's from last May. And we've got to understand that there's only going to be one survivor long term, and it's either going to be the People's Republic of China or the United States of America. So we need to defend ourselves, and we need to understand the fundamental nature of the challenge from Beijing.
Gordon Chang, you can find him on Twitter at Gordon G. Chang. I appreciate you very much, sir. Thanks for giving us some time.
Oh, thank you so much, Jesse.
We're not finished yet. Hang on. Dr. Fauci has become the face of the administration's response to this whole thing. Look, a lot of people love him. A lot of people hate him. We'll get to that in a moment. I want you to listen to this, though, because I have something that the president needs to hear.
The Surgeon General was on with us just yesterday and said, my advice is that the 30-day guidelines to stay home from the federal government amount to a national stay-at-home order. Is that how you see it, too? Do you agree?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at what's in those 30-day recommendations of the guidelines, that's essentially what it is. I mean, I know it's difficult, but we're having a lot of suffering, a lot of death. This is inconvenient from an economic and a personal standpoint, but we just have to do it. That is our major weapon against this virus right now. Yeah. We don't have a vaccine that's deployable. This is the only thing we have. And we can get through it if everybody really leans forward and pushes on this.
Okay, hang on. I have an issue with this, and I have a major issue with this. For one, I understand he's a doctor. I'm not crushing him for this. Can we never use the word economic discomfort again? Let's never use that again. People's lives are being wiped out as we speak. It's economically uncomfortable for you, Doc. It's the end of everything for other people. Let's just be real clear about that. 2, we cannot live like this forever. And I understand what he's doing. If you're a general, a commanding general over a whole bunch of forces, you're MacArthur. You got forces everywhere. And this general comes up and says, hey, man, I need 90% of your troops with me over here, and I'm going to win this thing. You can't do that. You can listen. You can give him some. You can't give him everything he ever wants. A general always wants more men and more bullets, period, because he's a general. That's the reason the founders made the President of the United States the commander-in-chief, because they knew that's what generals want. And somebody, for the good of the nation of a whole, has to look at the general and say, no, you can't have that. In the same way, we have Dr. Fauci here. He is attacking this virus. I'm sure he's very qualified. I'm not attacking the man. He is an advisor. He is not the newfound king of the United States of America. And America is not a virus. Yes, we have a virus. Parts of the country are extremely affected. Many parts of it are not affected at all. We are not a virus. We are a nation of 350 million people, a $20 trillion economy, more working parts and odds and ends than you can ever possibly count. The doctor can't make the decisions for the entire United States of America. I don't care how smart he is. I don't care if he has an IQ of 9,000. I don't care how many Ivy League degrees he has. None of that matters to me at all. Yes, he can advise the president on the best way to defeat a virus. No, locking every American in their home until we're all destitute, that should never, ever have been something that was even considered. Never. I cannot believe that this has become something that several countries, not just ours, are doing. I've never even seen anything like it. Even in the history of pandemics. Now, we had quarantines inside a home. We even in Marseille at one point in time, they built up a wall around the whole city and shot anyone who tried to leave. You don't do it for a whole country, and you know part of the reason you don't do it for a whole country, and we don't talk about this enough at all. It's not possible. If everyone will just lean into it and social distance, people, the videos are all over the place. It's not realistic to tell 350 million people to just go hide in your apartment. It's not. You might as well sit down with your patient as the doctor and prescribe to him growing wings. It's not possible. So why are you doing it? Prescribe things that are possible. Now, on to the second part of this, and this worries me. Listen to this.
I will ask you if you yourself feel personally threatened at all. Do you feel safe? Do you feel that your family is safe?
You know, I do, Samantha. I mean, I've chosen this life. I mean, I know what it is. There are things about it that sometimes are disturbing, but you just focus on the job you have to do and just put all that other stuff aside and try as best as possible not to pay attention to it and just forge ahead. We have a really, very difficult situation ahead of us. All of that other stuff is secondary.
Ridiculous. Don't be threatening the doctor. Keep your hands off the doctor, but this goes along the lines of what I'm about to tell you. We also had a train, and the engineer tried to steer the train off the tracks to ram it into the USNS Mercy, which is one of the hospital ships that's parked out in Los Angeles. Now remember, the hospital ships both in New York and Los Angeles are not for coronavirus patients. They're for patients who specifically don't have coronavirus so they can go get treated in a place that's completely clear of it. But a train engineer thought he was going to steer the train? It doesn't make sense. But it also goes in line with the things that I've been saying and what I want to warn you about, and I need you to hear me on this. I am sorry this is going to be so direct. But again, this is not your mommy's show. This is my show. Buy a weapon. I don't want to hear anymore that, well, I'm really not comfortable with them. Well, you don't understand. We have little Billy in the house, and he might get a hold of it. Find a way to get a weapon in your home and make sure you have ammunition for it. Make sure you learn how to use it safely. Make sure you learn how to use it accurately. Many places the gun ranges are still open. What I'm saying is we have idiots threatening the freaking doctor. We have a train engineer trying to steer a train into a naval ship. And it's April 2nd. How do you think the desperation is going to manifest itself over the next 30 days as 40 million Americans lose their living? You need to protect yourself. Take steps to protect yourself. Believe me. And not only that, and I'm sorry to put it to you this way, you need to be a lot more aware than you are while you are at work. Be very kind to your coworkers. Understand that a lot of your people are going to have to lose their jobs. People can react poorly when they lose their jobs, when their loved ones lose their jobs. Stay aware out there. Be safe. All right, we're going to talk about that and many other things with Cam Edwards. Hang on. Just the man I needed to talk to today for a variety of reasons. Cam Edwards with BearingArms.com. Cam, I see we have a nutball train engineer in California trying to steer his train into a hospital ship. The Dr. Fauci's now getting death threats because people are idiots. And the bottom line is, as I try to elaborate in my last segment, we are facing some really desperate times right now, and desperate people do stupid, crazy, desperate things. You know more about guns than anybody else I've ever known in my life. There are people watching my show, as unbelievable as this is, that do not currently own a weapon, and I told them all of them need to. Please walk them through a process for somebody who's scared to death and thinks it's going to blow up in their face.
Sure. First of all, thanks, Jesse, for having me on the program. If you are not currently a gun owner, you are probably going to have a difficult time finding a firearm right now. We just saw from the FBI that a record number of background checks were conducted in the month of March. The National Shooting Sports Foundation estimates that about 2.5 million firearms were sold in the month of March. That is a record number. So, listen, store shelves are picked over right now. It's going to be tough to find a firearm or ammunition. The good news is that manufacturers are still producing those firearms. The supply chain is strong. It's just that demand right now is outstripping supply. So the first bit of advice, if you are looking to find a firearm, is be patient. It might not happen right away, but you're also probably going to be limited in terms of what is available to you. Listen, if you go to the gun store and there are shotguns available for sale, but there aren't many handguns available for sale, that's okay. You can pick up a shotgun. If you want a firearm for self-defense, a pistol, a rifle, a shotgun, all of those will do. It's just a matter of, what might be available to you. And frankly, not only what types of firearms might be on the shelves, but what type of ammunition might be available for you to purchase as well at the moment.
Cam, what if let's assume, and this is not the case, as you just elaborated, let's assume we're looking at stock shelves of weapons and ammunition. We have a husband and wife couple. They're making their first weapon purchase. Money's tight right now. They can only buy one. What are you telling that person to buy? A shotgun, a rifle, a pistol of some kind? What do they do that may work for both of them so both of them can function with the weapon?
Honestly, I think at this point, I would probably recommend a handgun more than a rifle, although you can certainly find some AR platforms that are ambidextrous in nature. I'm left-handed. My wife is right-handed. My AR has a forward charging amount that allows me to switch it out for left and right hand so that she could use it, I could use it as well. But I think your best bet is going to be a handgun at this point. And, if you can find something in a common caliber, a 9mm, 45 ACP, even if necessary, you can go down to a 22 Magnum, let's say a Kel-Tec, with a 30-round magazine for 22 caliber. That'll be fine for self-defense. What we really need to do, honestly, is once you find a firearm that fits your purpose, then you really need to, try to find out information, and it's probably going to be online at this point, about how to safely handle that firearm, how to remove the magazine, how to load that firearm. We've got estimates are, Jesse, we have as many as 1 million Americans who are new gun owners over the past month, who've never owned a firearm before. Now they are gun owners. And I think the key is to ensure that those folks have the information available to them so they can be safe and responsible. The great news is that there are a lot of organizations online, NRA, National Shooting Sports Foundation, U.S. Concealed Carry Association, who have put out videos. They've put out, written resources so that you can get that basic instruction that you need to be safe and responsible with a firearm until you can get to the range. You can take an NRA basic pistol course or things of that nature.
Yes, and listen to him there, people. Before you ever start putting rounds downrange, all that matters is safety first. Learn how to use it safely. You are not Rambo. Don't go waving your new weapon around the house. It is not a toy. Now, Cam, on to, well, the big news. What do you make of this absolute insanity? What I think about it is no secret. I've been out there about it all over my TV show, radio show, and social media. You have the floor, sir. Go.
You know, you and I, Jesse, I think are largely in agreement. Not 100%, but you know, I am well aware of both the public health repercussions and the economic repercussions of what we're going through. You well know my wife is a lung cancer patient right now. She has a suppressed immune system. We are prepared, if necessary, to isolate ourselves for months and months, and we'll rely on friends and family to help bring us groceries and things of that nature. People like my family are going to be impacted by this far longer than the average healthy American. And both my wife and I understand we need to get the economy back up and running as quickly as we possibly can. But we need to ensure that we do so in a way that doesn't lead to a second wave of coronavirus infections that could decimate the economy for an even longer period of time. So, you know, I think we're in a situation right now where there are no good answers. There are certainly no easy answers right now. But what I would prefer to see, honestly, is going forward, let's look at county by county. Where are these cases starting to decline? Where can we open things up again? There's no reason, in my opinion, to have a nationwide lockdown when, for instance, in Virginia right now, we've got about 1,400 cases compared to tens of thousands of cases in New York State, right? There's not a one-size-fits-all answer here. And if we got to be smart about this, we have to try to open up the economy as quickly as we can in those places where it's safe to do so. Otherwise, we're going to suffer long-lasting economic damage in addition to the tens of thousands of Americans who are going to die from the coronavirus. I wish that there was a simple answer here. I wish that there was an easy answer, but there's not. What we have to do, though, is we have to be smart about this. And, you know, unfortunately, it's just not an option to keep the economy locked down for months at a time. That is, I think, going to make, as the president said, the cure worse than the disease.
Cam Edwards, bearingarms.com. Thank you for giving us some wisdom tonight, sir.
You bet, Jesse. Always good talking with you, man.
Give our best to Ms. E. All right. We have some folks who are tackling the coronavirus, some older folks, aggressively. Hang on. Well, we cannot forget about our elderly during this whole pandemic and economic downturn. The truth of the matter is this, and this is just the reality of it. Talk about their level of fear, not just for their 401ks. And look, you can yell all day long about the stock market. It's not about the stock market. There are a lot of old retired people. That's their only income. You should be worried about the stock market. What about the people quarantined inside of nursing homes, worried that this is a death sentence if they get this? So your heart really has to go out to the elderly of this nation. This next couple, though, they're handling it okay.
On. Is it on?
It's on. Okay.
All right, we're on.
Garage door assisted Corona.
Chugging challenge.
All right.
All right, hang on.
Assume the position. Quick, guys, get ready.
Okay, wait.
I don't think we missed a drop.
Jake and Barb,
I'm pretty sure we got it all.
you're up.
Look, let us hope we're all like that when we're that age. Good for them. Good for some Americans still showing some spunk out there. All right. We have more. We're going to do this. Well, we say we do this one more time this week. See you tomorrow.